All right, and we're back. It's another Neville and Chill. I have Shweta with me again. Hello, Shweta.
Hi, Josiah.
It's so nice to see you. Thank you for hopping on for another Neville and Chill. I'm excited because we have kind of a specific topic in mind, whereas in the past, I think we've probably had topics too, but tonight's topic, I'm really pretty looking forward to. It's this idea of how to use manifestation techniques for like really practical everyday things. Do you want to give us a little introduction on what kind of inspired this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of us find manifestation when we're sometimes in a deep, desperately dark place to solve something big, something thematic. So not just a small thing in our life, but a bigger thing that a bigger life purpose. Um, However, what I found really important here is to find the little areas in life, little to medium areas in life where we can practice these teachings and develop faith in ourselves, so that we can create a better reality for ourselves in those bigger areas. So I think
Mhm.
sometimes the practical and the everyday and the mundane kind of gets lost in our lives, and we forget to use these techniques in those areas. I'm thinking about things like, yes, free coffee and parking, which a lot of us tend to do, but then there's a lot of middle ground there until, let's say, finding the love of your life or becoming a millionaire. There's a lot of middle ground there. And so today I'd like to kind of focus our conversation on one of the practical matters of finding lost things, big and small. Like, you know how it can feel so irritating, so frustrating when you have something that you need and then it's gone out of nowhere. And in this big, vast universe that we live in, we have no idea where it could be. It's a very stressful feeling, and it can really take over your day or week or month if you don't know where this item is. And there's a sense of loss, dread, and an unfortunate feeling of lacking power.
Mm-hmm.
For this item. It's an object, but you
Yes.
feel powerless in the face of this object. So
Yes.
I'd like to kind of focus on this topic with you because I know you and I have both had a ton of different stories around manifesting lost things of all kinds. And this is an area in which I have had a really high success rate and use all the time. I
Yeah,
should
I,
probably
I
shift.
heard it
Yeah.
was about a 97%, actually.
Yeah, well, it was funny because I was telling my mom, I'm like, I have a really high success rate manifesting lost things, right? And I was like, I think it's like 90%. She's like, no, it's like 97%. So I was like, that's really funny.
97%.
I was
I
like,
should
okay.
put in the title of the video, 97% success rate
No,
finding
I
lost.
mean, yeah. That's what it feels like. That's how I'm in a position now in my life where my family reaches out to me when they have lost things to help them get their mind clear to manifest that thing back. Because what
Yeah.
do we do when we lose things? We frantically search for it. Our state goes from, oh shit, this is gone, like from like maybe a
Yeah.
calm state to a frantic state pretty immediately, and we start acting and behaving in the 3D reality to try to find it. So that can be a potent place to try to test these things. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what I want to talk about today.
Well, I think that's a great introduction. Yeah. So it's like how to use this amazing power that we are on really practical things. And I think something like finding a lost item, everybody can relate to this. And I love what you surfaced about it being practice. It's that everyday practical practice that teaches us to exist in the state of being the operant power. I mean, and it's like not just about the big things, but it's like literally like how do I think from this about everything? So we're going to get more into that. But first, I see we have a couple people in the chat, so I would like to take a moment to welcome them. Are you able to see the chat now, Shweta?
I am.
Okay, awesome. So we have Angela just joined us. Actually, just joined the channel, Sunday Mystery School. Hello and welcome, Angela, new member. Awesome. We have Orlana. Orlana says, I got home just in time for Neville and Chill. See, it's the perfect timing. Always the perfect. We've got Mark Bradfield. He's listening from Rome, but it's in Georgia. All right. We have Jackie. Hi, Jackie. Stasio, a longtime patron of Neville and Chill. Stasio. And we have Crystal Carreri with us also. Cool. All right. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this. So finding lost items. So you gave such an excellent intro. I want to just go ahead and start with a couple of the things that you said in
Hmm.
that introduction about like kind of what inspired this topic for tonight's Neville and Chill. So, so like the basic premise that I'm now operating from in my life after having studied all of this and put it to the test and proven it to myself time and time again, my basic premise is that I'm living in a world of imagination, and imagination or consciousness is all there is. So there's this perspective that says that, if I have an object, that object is, exists in my imagination. So if I lose the object physically in the 3D, theoretically, I should be able to use the imagination which created it in the first place to summon it back to me. And I think that's exactly what we do. We learn to shift states. So one of the things that you said right out the gate is you said when we lose something, the pattern of behavior. Nobody on this channel, of course, right? But like the pattern of behavior is you kind of panic and become frantic and like, oh my God, I have to find this right now. And so you immediately go from the state of having into the state of not having and looking for, right? That's being very reactive. And it can happen so quickly you don't even realize that you just went from the state of having to the state of not having and searching. And so, like just to kind of get super clear on this, basically
Yeah.
the whole point is to recognize when either when it happens or when the invitation to switch states happens. Because it's like at first you in this journey, you usually like switch into it reactively and then you catch yourself in it and you're like, hold on, this isn't the state I want to be in. Let me move back out of it. And then as you get more skilled in mindfulness and being aware of your thoughts and your patterns and your behavior and your state, you can catch it and be like, oh, this is an invitation for me to switch states. But I'm not going to accept this invitation. I'm actually going to respectfully decline this invitation. And I'm just going to move into my desired state of having once
Mm-hmm.
more. So
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of catch it faster.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the whole idea is to be aware that that's the invitation or that's a place that you can go, and then to choose not to go there and to rather choose to manage the situation through your state. What's your perspective on that?
Absolutely. And I think you nailed it on the head. And I think that's the high level perspective of what happens. But in the moment, and not but and in the moment, what happens is we get overtaken and all of a sudden that problem seems really big. And I don't know if this ever happens to people when they lose something important. All the other things that are going well in our life seem kind of small. This has become the biggest thing we need to focus on. And we start having this story around it. And I kind of want to jump into an example of where this kind of happened for me and all the different layers to it. But before I do that, right, just like because I get really excited about these stories and I want to jump in. Did you want to tell us what we're drinking today in the Neville and Chill kind of for like the Neville and Chill moment that we're having right now?
I do. Yes, that's awesome. Okay, so it's Neville and Chill, everybody. I know it's been a minute since we had one of these, but the Neville and Chill idea, the whole premise of it is that we are relaxing and talking about living this as everyday life. And so part of our relaxation is that we enjoy beverages. And I like these high vibe social tonics that are non-alcoholic. Not that I have anything against alcohol. I just am kind of on this little kick of social, what do they call it? Adaptogen drinks. So
Hmm.
tonight I have an adaptogen drink called Recess, and it has magnesium to get super, super, it's like a electrolyte and it's also very relaxing. And it has the flavor is raspberry lemon, and it has L-theanine and lemon balm. And the magnesium, it's L-threonate, which is specifically the type of magnesium that the brain enjoys. So it's like
Mm,
social tonic, right? So it's meant for relaxation and just kind of like
nice.
feeling good and like a gentle lift. Yeah. How about you? What are you
Wow.
drinking?
Oh, okay. So I'm drinking one of my favorite drinks in the world, which is mango juice. I'm originally from India, where there's all kinds of delicious like types of mangoes that you can get there. And it's a brand from a brand that I grew up with called Rubicon. So I don't know if there's any
Uh,
other tropical babies or mango enjoyers. It's a very good, fun mango drink. And I like to put some Perrier in it, to like spritz it up a bit and
mhm.
have it like be a little bit more sparkly. So not as fancy as yours as usual, but still
Yeah,
quite tasty.
I mean, mango's pretty fancy. So cheers to Neville and Chill and to
Cheers.
all of our friends joining us on YouTube. There's Carrie. Yeah. So Carrie loves mango. Yes.
Yum. Okay, yeah, mango lassi. Yep, Orlana. That's one of my faves.
Mm, it's very light. These ones in particular, these recess, they're not like intense flavor. It's very, very light and bubbly, and
Mm,
kind of perfect. It kind of reminds me of like what do they call them? Sparkling, like a lightly flavored sparkling water, right?
yeah.
There's no sugar, there's no like anything weird in there. It's literally just
The
so,
last time you had a drink from Olipop, that inspired me when I saw it the next time to grab a couple of cans. And so I love an intense flavor, don't get me wrong.
mm,
But like I found that some of them were really quite intensely flavored, some of the ones that you
mhm.
recommended, but it sounds like what you're drinking now is more chill.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's I think it's monk fruit that brands are using now as an alternative to sugar.
Mm.
And it has a very specific taste. And I generally kind of like sweet things, but there's some sodas that use monk fruit that it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah. An acquired taste.
yeah, it can be a lot. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, so we have officially missed the live stream
Yeah.
with our social tonic adaptogen drinks here. So
Absolutely. Hopefully
yeah,
everyone else is imbibing in something that they like as
I
well.
hope so. And if you are in the chat and you're imbibing something delicious, please do share with us. We would love to know.
Love it.
Okay, so what do you think? Where should we go from here? Should we go ahead and jump into a story, or should we talk about the technique?
No, I'm going to jump into the story and then I'm going to work backwards
Okay.
because there's a ton of these stories and I know you have plenty as well. And we've been, you've heard about these stories in passing because like, we're friends and we're manifesting friends. But I kind of wanted to talk about one that happened recently because it's top of mind a little bit, and then go from there. So in February of this year, I had gone out with a friend and it was kind of a difficult night out. There was some conflict happening with the friend. We kind of got, this is a safe space, but we got really drunk and there was a huge argument. And I remember thinking like, this is one of the worst nights of my life. And I was really upset. Got
Mm,
home, woke up the next day. And it wasn't until I woke up in the place of shame, but it wasn't like until 2 hours later that I realized I had no idea where my wallet is. So I'm in a state of shame already because I had fought with my friend and I drank too much and I was hungover and tired and confused. Um, we had club hopped and bar hopped like 7 different places. So I mean, the wallet could have been anywhere, and I had no idea where it could be. So my my state of panic was an all-time high. We all know what it's like to lose a wallet, all the things that you have to replace, the security fears, and I felt like a moron. Here I am, supposed to be a responsible adult, and I lose something that's incredibly important to me. So I had been in these situations plenty of times before, if I'm honest with you. So I knew what I needed to do was calm the hell down and start revising what happened. And so I did everything I could. I put on some meditative music pretty much immediately. Calmed down, visualized it in my hand, tried to imagine that it was back. I also did the action thing. So from that state, once I calmed down, I called some of the places I went to. Hey, did I leave my wallet there? And I reached out to anyone I could have come into contact with if they saw my wallet and started that process. Now, usually by this time I would have gotten my item back. That's what I was used to in this manifesting journey, that in a few hours I get that thing back. But that wasn't what was happening this day. My sense of shame was looming. Even though I was revising everybody's nose, and I had a strong feeling I would get my wallet back, it wasn't happening. And what was really frustrating is in a week from now, I was traveling to India. So I was supposed to leave the country in like 5 days after this happened, and I had no wallet. So I was absolutely petrified, shocked, confused, but I knew that the shame story I had about that crappy night had something to do with why this is difficult for me to manifest this back. And so I persisted. I tried every technique I could think of. Mostly, I remember visualizing it back in my hands because it's a wallet that you hold a lot. You know what it feels like, right? You know the texture, the size. I knew what cards were in there and how they looked. So I did everything I could from a visual perspective, from a pure visualization, imagination, sensory perspective. And then I also imagined telling my mom, who I told that I lost it, Mom, I found the wallet back, or told my friends, hey, I found that wallet back. But it was really difficult. That first day I was in a sense of shame, and in a bad place. So, but then I started to pick up the pieces. I apologized and made up with a friend. That kind of calmed me down. I paused all the cards. I didn't cancel them, but I paused them, and I still held on the faith, but I decided to take a turn of maturity. I did what I could to find it, and then I just continued to revise and imagine. What I will say is, and then I actually flew to India. So 4 or 5 days, I have not got the wallet back. I'm flying to India. So I'm still every single day though, at least a couple of times a day, imagining the wallet back in my hand, revising people when they responded back to me, oh, I don't have your wallet. Sorry, Shweta, I looked, I couldn't find it. And I'm still visualizing it back in my hand. And what was interesting, I have to say, is that I told people I'm going to get my wallet back. So one takeaway I got from I have from this is, you know how there's advice of tell no man? In this case, I told everybody I'm getting my wallet back. I told my concierge, I told my friends, I told the girl I lost the wallet with. The funny thing is, that night that we went out, I was telling her about Neville Goddard, and she kind of had heard about him. So, I was like, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to like prove to all these people. So anyway, I'm in India, no wallet back, but I have to say nothing happened where I needed my wallet. So what I mean is, between me losing it to me being in India having fun with my grandma, there was not even one instance where I needed the wallet. I know that sounds wild, but like, my family would easily pay for something, or like they were cool with it. When I got there, my grandma gave me some cash. Like, I mean, I just genuinely didn't need the wallet. So that was kind of interesting. I didn't feel the loss of it. Okay. So that my revising and my imagining meant that I didn't feel the loss of the missing wallet. So I get to India, and then I lay down. This is a great day. I had a great day. Feeling really good about myself. It felt like, a lovely, wholesome time with the family. And I decided, okay, let me visualize it. And this time, as I'm visualizing it, it is so real. I almost felt like I could grab it from the ether. Like, that's how much I had visualized this damn thing. I actually thought I could grab it. Like, that's how realistic it was. So I'm sitting there visualizing it. I'm feeling it. Like, I almost feel like I could grab it. And I get a message right in that moment. I look at the message, and it's a picture. So it says image. I don't know what the image is. It's just image. And I knew even before opening it, that was my wallet. And it was from this random man that I met that night that was like, hey, is this your wallet? I found it. And even before I opened the image, there it was. And I got it back. And I could tell everyone that I said, hey, I got my wallet back, that I got it back. And this was weeks after, and when everybody, by the way, was telling me, I should tell you, when I went to one of the clubs, I went back, he's like, ma'am, I saw you drunk as hell yesterday. Someone could have absolutely stolen it from you. It happens all the time. Like, you were wandering around, like someone could have pickpocketed you. It happens all the time. You're not getting that back. But at this point, I had done this enough to know it doesn't matter what this guy has to say. So I even though that was disappointing, I wanted my wallet back. I stayed with it. I was really confident in this area. So, whether that was visualizing, revising, or imagining telling my friends, I guess you could say I kind of, with all the different angles that I could, just kept the faith. And then I made peace with the situation. It was when I really got peace, where I was like, I guess I don't really need this, but it would be really nice. And then to the point where I felt it in the ether, like that's the best way I could think, grabbing it out, that I get that message at the very same time. And so first I felt that I have some things I learned from this, and I have some notes here, but I want to give you a chance to like ask me any questions or anything before I jump in. Because this was an exciting story for me. So I tend to get ahead of myself here.
Yeah, so that goes for the chat too. If you have questions about this, go ahead and pop them in the
Yeah.
chat. I'm keeping an eye on it. I've got it up on a second screen over here on my right. So I'm keeping an eye on
Okay.
the chat.
Yeah.
So y'all can throw out any questions you have about this process. Okay, so I don't really have a question, but I have some things that I want to surface because this is meant to be like inspiring and maybe a little bit of teaching or
Mm.
reinforcing. If
Hmm.
you are watching this and you already know how to do it, or maybe you're like, oh, this is maybe we're talking about it in a different way than what you've studied before. So like some things that I just kind of want to point out. So first of all, catching the state immediately, like you woke up and you're like, well, like you said, you're already like kind of carrying some emotions over from other things that were unrelated. Although honestly, like I feel like that was all kind of one situation, like losing
Yes.
the wallet and
Yes.
everything else that happened is all one situation. But like
Hmm.
still, you wake up and like you're in a state at first, and then you realize that the wallet's gone. So like
Hmm.
catching that immediately and being like, hold on, I'm not going to surrender to this. Rather, I'm going to start to use the processes that I know work. Like you said, you put on some
Yeah.
meditative music, you start to move, catch a new mood, move your mental and emotional, physiological, psychological, spiritual state, kind of start to move that along, and then start applying the techniques of visualizing that it's back, solving whatever outstanding
Yes.
issues for, and then also taking action that would be in alignment with
Hmm.
what a responsible adult would do to get it. Although it
Exactly.
is
Yeah.
interesting to point out that it was not those actions that led to
No.
the recovery of the wallet.
Hmm.
In fact, you could have done no action and you still
Hmm.
would have gotten that wallet back because
Hmm.
of the way that it played out. So
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
interesting to note that. So it's like, they say, God helps those who helps themselves. And we understand God is imagination, right? So it's like, our imagination is going to support, but it's also up to us, to take action we feel inspired to take.
Exactly.
It's interesting still to note that that is not what
Hmm.
returned the wallet. Because if it was, then people would have said, oh, that would have happened anyway. Of course, he would have called the bar and they've been like, yes, Miss Shweta, we have your wallet
Yes.
been waiting.
Yes.
And they'd be like, oh, that would have
There's
happened
something
anyway.
to be said about
Yeah,
the story aspect
yeah,
of
yeah,
this,
yeah.
of like the guy telling me there's no way you're gonna get it back, and me
Yeah.
having that sad face, and then me having to wander the streets of Toronto a little bit depressed. Like it kind of added to the storyline of that win in the end when I got the wallet back. And for me, the action aspect that you're talking about here, I really have struggled over the years of being a Neville student about action. And I've
Mhm.
uncovered a lot of different truths about what action actually is. But when I was acting from, which I had had enough experience to know that I shouldn't act from the negative place, that I should at least act from a faithful place, what I was demonstrating to myself is, like you said, what does a responsible person do? She goes and tries to find it. I have faith in getting this back, but I would, do what render to Caesar what is Caesar's. I would do the action that makes sense in the storyline and not even put pressure on those things to get back my wallet, but to do it because that's what Shweta believes is the right thing to do, and in this point of time, without putting pressure on it. So I think that's a really important point you bring up, because sometimes we overcomplicate the role of action, but it's what you think is the right thing to do. You do it with a little bit of a detachment because you know it's already done. So
That's a key point. I don't want to gloss over that. That's a key point. So like acting from the state of faith. Okay. So and I'll share my stories here in a minute, but a key thing for me is soon, like the minute, the second, the millisecond that I realize that something is not where I expected it to be, I instantly stop looking for it. It's
mm,
like now I've just programmed, I instantly stop looking for it because I know that if I start looking for it, I'm now entering the state of not having. And so what I do instead is I instantly I'm like, oh, well, that's unexpected. Let me just go ahead and hold it in the palm of my hand in my imagination. Same way you did.
mm,
You got really clear on what it felt like and we're like, whatever. And so I do that. And then if I get a little inkling of like, oh, it's, I remember seeing it here or whatever, then I'll go and like look there.
exactly.
Right. But I'm
Yeah.
not just gonna like randomly search everywhere. I stop and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna look for this because looking implies not having. Right. So I'm in the state of finding. I'm in the state of I have found. I found it in my imagination. Now I'm just waiting for the world to catch up. Right.
And then I don't know if you've had this experience. It almost feels like a GPS situation where you're
Oh
like
yeah.
led to that.
Oh yeah.
So I totally hear you on that. And like I think when you are in a state of already having it, the body just seems to float into it. I've had that
Yeah.
happen so many times. And I know another thing I think I wanted to bring up here is the idea of not telling anyone about your manifestation. This is another lesson that came from me when I reflect on this manifestation, because for some reason I told everybody I could think of that I was going to get this wallet back. And I think it's because I already knew it was done. I had a sense of confidence about it. I had done this many times before and it felt right to do. But in other situations, and but in other situations, I think it's a best practice to keep these beautiful desires to yourself you feel until you feel led to share. And I say this because there's this another conflict I see online when people are like, tell no man, as if that's like a hard and fast rule. But we see so many, for example, celebrities, I will tell anyone since they were born that they're meant to be a star. And that's how they were able to create it. So I just want to say that I think we need to relax on some of these hard and fast rules that we sometimes see online and allow ourselves to do what we think is right from an intuition perspective, say what we think is right, as long as it helps us tune into the end of what we want. It's okay if you feel led to tell your partner or to tell a family member. Just as long as you feel strong in it, because there have been other times where I told people a little too early about something. I felt my energy was dissipating and they were reflecting back my doubts. But this is just an invitation to stop overthinking all the details of things and like stop overthinking, because there's the law, right? That imagination is reality. And then there's best practices, and you can play around with different best practices in different areas of your life, So something to think about there. And I think that there was this sense of surrender that I had to come to with this. And that's another thing I think is important here. It's like I had to go to India. There was no more searching. There's nothing else I could do. And at that point, there was no actions I could take. And then everyone had told me it was gone, but I still continued to visualize. Like I just like continue to imagine. I didn't take no for an answer, but I did it in this surrendering way. And then when I got the wallet back, by the way, I want to mention, as soon as I got the wallet back, I was excited for like 2 minutes. Oh my God, friends, I got it back. And then it was back to normal. And it goes back to what Neville says all the time, that by the time something happens like that, you're going to think, that would have happened anyway. It becomes so natural to you that you kind of move on to the next thing. So
Yes.
I think this was a story to like kind of challenge some of the ways and to confirm some of the ways that some of Neville's advice. So if he said, tell no man, he meant as a best practice, maybe not as the law, but when he said, trust and surrender, that absolutely is true and worked out for me. So
Yeah. So I see Carrie in the chat. She says, I would say tell no man if you are easily swayed by other people's opinions, which makes a ton of sense. If you're like, okay, so it's like, oh, in her second, if you are confident in your abilities and beliefs, then other opinions won't sway you. Okay, so if you are telling somebody because you are not in a place of faith and you're expecting them to invest faith in you to like help you be more faithful, that's probably not going to turn out very well, because they're more likely to reflect back to you your doubts. But if you're telling someone else because you're already in a complete sense of faith and you know that it is done, and as Carrie is saying here, and you're not easily swayed by the people's opinions and you have full confidence, then even if, like that bar man was like, yeah, good luck, like you're never saying that thing again. Like, it's like, okay, whatever. Like, I don't really care about your opinion. I was more notifying you rather than asking
that's
you
such a
to
good point.
believe
That's a really good like heuristic on this. Are you seeking validation right now? Or are you just having a good time telling your friends? Like, what's the intention behind it? Because when you're seeking validation, good luck. And I know for a fact you won't get that. I mean, let me put it this way, because I can be kind of black and white in my thinking. Every time I've told someone my desire in order to seek validation, they just reflected back my fear and dissipated that desire energy. So, but it's interesting. These are great things to kind of ponder a little bit and tear apart a little bit, because sometimes we can be very dogmatic in this stuff. But in this area, in this story, I told everybody I was going to get it back. And it was so good to come back and tell my concierge. I got my wallet back. He's like, oh, okay. I mean, welcome back from India, but cool. Like, and another thing I want to say about this is when I told people I got this back, like the anticlimacticness kind of was interesting to me, because sometimes you think like the desire is what makes you happy or something, or like that's going to fulfill you. But actually when you get it back, it becomes table stakes again. Okay, I have my wallet. And then the next thing happens. And so we kind of have, I think it would be great once we get our manifestation to really enjoy and like juice it for all it's worth and feel really good about it. And remember that remember these things and journal these things, and so that the next time another desire happens, the next time you lose something, you have something to fall back on, because sometimes you can just, you forget about that story, and you forget about all the work that you put into it. And you don't need to. So yeah, back to all the things I always say, which is to journal your wins.
That's so important, because there's kind of this other element to this process, and it's faith building. It's like, okay, so yes, people keep telling me that this is a world of imagination, and that I am imagination, and that all that I perceive is imagination. But it's like, but I need to build proof of it for myself, because as Neville says, like, hearing another man tell you won't do it, right? Like, reading it in a book won't do it. Like, you have to test it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know for yourself. So like, if in truth you're living in a world of imagination, and your imagination and everything that you perceive is imagination, then really you should be able to manifest anything, right? But like, how about starting with manifesting
Yeah.
something that you had already, and then you
Yeah.
need to get it back. And then, like you're saying, like, really, really juice that as a win, because you're like, hey, this is proof, that the law works. And
Mhm.
yes, it's a small thing, but like, over time, it builds up this confidence. You can have this deep reservoir of faith, and then over time, you get to the point where you realize a castle is no different than a button. I think that's a quote somebody said once.
Mm.
Manifesting a castle is no different than
Mhm.
manifesting a button, right? So it's like, but you have to get to that place of faithfulness. I just, for some reason, as you were speaking, I had this memory of this story, and it's kind of a secondhand story. I'll tell a first person story in a little bit. It's kind of a secondhand story, but I think it illustrates an interesting point. It was a friend of mine, and she was living in like San Diego many years ago, in like this, sharing a house with like a bunch of roommates. And there's this one guy in the house who was really good at manifesting. Like, he just kind of this, interesting
Yeah.
character, I'm sure, super good at manifesting. And what he would do is he would just choose something that he wanted to manifest, and then he would do his thing, and get so clear until it was like what you said, like he could reach out into the ether and feel it.
Mm.
And he wouldn't know necessarily how it was going to arrive. It's just like something like, one day he just was like, I think I want someone to give me a car, like gift me a car. Like, he just
Mm.
decided that. And so he like went and did his thing, and just got super, super clear until he was super confident that that car was going to show up somehow. And then he comes out in the living room and is like telling all the roomies, he's like, hey guys, I'm getting a new car. And they're like, really, you're gonna like go buy it? He's like, no, 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 somebody's gonna give it to me. And they're like, well, who? And he's like, well, I don't know. And they're like, what? And like, sure enough, the next day,
Mm.
through some crazy bridge of incidents, someone
Mm.
like, he like drives up to the house, and he's like, hey, so somebody gave
Oh
me
my
this
God.
car, right? So it's like, he was so good at it. He got to the point, he had so much faith that he knew it was real, even though he had zero physical evidence. And he just strolled to the
Mhm.
living room and be like, hey guys, I'm gonna get a car. And they're like, really? And
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, I don't know how, but it'll be here any minute
That's
now.
fun because his
Right?
certainty kind of solidified from all these different probabilities. It kind of hardened into reality because of his certainty into something. And also, like, it goes back and kind of flies into the face of tell no man. He didn't have, um, he didn't need that validation. Like, kind of goes back to what we were saying. He didn't need that validation from his friends. He was just having some fun with it, like
Kind of
showing
enjoyed
someone
their
a
doubt,
piece.
I think. And after a while,
Pardon?
they stopped doubting him, because
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But I think at first he found it funny that people would doubt him. Right? He's like, ha
Mm.
ha, ha, you think that I'm like, but it's gonna happen. Like, just wait. Right? It's like you in
Yeah,
the wallet, like, yeah, this is coming back.
to them and to him and to other people that manifest these things and me as well, those areas feel like ultimately no big deal. So when you have this feeling of, nah, that's no big deal, I know I can do it, that's a really solid place to manifest from.
Yes.
And I was, what you said made me think of, like, I wonder what other areas in my life that I'm just certain about, even with no evidence. And a lot of those
Oh,
areas might be me being certain about stuff that I don't actually want to happen. I'm sure
mhm.
that'll happen. I'm sure that'll happen, but I have no evidence for it. But I'm just uncertain to the point where I might be like, I think that's going to happen to a friend. But I would want to do a little bit of an inventory, I think, of all the
Mm,
things I might be just casually certain about, kind of like what you talked about with that guy, that I
mhm.
have no evidence for, but for some reason I'm certain about it. Because those things tend to solidify in my reality just because of my casual acceptance that they'll happen, you know?
Yeah, completely unchallenged. Neville talks a lot about adjustments of states where you like move in a certain direction and then like 10 minutes later you're right back. You know, and they're like, no, 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 I want to think this way about it. And then like 10 minutes later you're
Mm,
right back. And he's like, that
mhm,
doesn't do anything. Like you have, it's that certainty that you're talking about. But in
mhm.
Neville's words, he's like, it has to crowd out all other ideas in
Oh my
consciousness. Like
God.
your certainty that wallet was in your hand had to crowd out all
That's
potential
true.
voices of doubt,
That's true.
including the barman who was like, yeah, you're never seeing that again. You're like, nope, my faith is crowding out your opinion.
He was
Yeah.
adding to the shame in that moment with like, I saw you last night and all this stuff. And I was like, no, oh my God. So I had to
Oh,
really be stable, and kind of wallow in it. And I kind of took a long walk that day. I remember, like, lonely and sad, but still I was like, I know it's going to come back to me, but I just have to accept that this is how I'm feeling right now. So yeah, that's a really interesting story that's secondhand from your friend. And this is the kind of guy probably that doesn't go online and maybe share his stories. It's just how he lives his life. But
exactly.
I'd like to share, it's funny also you brought up a car,
Yeah.
because my second story was going to be about, this is to do with my mom. So what was interesting recently, well, maybe not recently, 6 months ago, I realized that my mom had manifested uh her car, the car that she has, her dream car, and this is how it happened. So a couple of years ago, I heard my mom come into the house and she was like, "Oh my God, our Lexus got stolen." And it's interesting to me because, I mean, I'm not a big car aficionado, but I what a week before I had heard so many people talk about like cars in our neighborhood being stolen. So I had that in my mind. I didn't revise it, and then that happened to my family, right? And I remember because in a previous conversation you and I had, I talked about a $1.2 million scam my mom was involved in and how I reversed that scam. So this time I had kind of learned from that, right? And it was a similar situation. It wasn't me in the throes of it. It wasn't my fault. I don't have any shame associated with it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this again for my mom. I feel like this is going to be easy. I'm going to manifest this again. And I thought, you know what? No one's dead here. It's a car. I use those kind of things to calm myself down. Yes, it sucks because it's violating as hell when someone steals something from you like that. But I was like, no, it's fine. No one's dead. It's fine. It's a car. It'll be okay. But she's gonna get that car back. So I employed all of the techniques I did for the other story that I told you about that you can catch in the other Neville and Chill that we had, where I heard my mom say we got it back. I visualized seeing it in the driveway. I did all kinds of things. I attacked it from all different angles as much as I could. And what was interesting though is like I noticed signs of the manifestation. So I saw like I heard on the radio that they had caught a whole fleet of cars, stopped it on the way to Ghana, and they were going to return them back to the owner. So I'm like, that's kind of a bridge of incidences. Maybe this is birds before land, as someone might say. I'm going to get this back. And then I heard, I saw a white Lexus on my parents' driveway, but it was actually my someone else's, that like a friend. So I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting, but we never ended up getting the Lexus back. And so I was really confused. And like, I was like, Mom, I feel really bad. I tried to manifest this back for you. I tried to manifest this Lexus back for you, but it didn't happen. And she's like, no, but you know what? I have to be honest. Like, when having gotten that Lexus stolen meant that I got my dream car. And I said, wait, what do you mean? She's like, the car that we're driving right now, it's like my favorite car ever. This is my dream car. It's Mercedes Benz. And I said, oh, like, how did you get this car? I'm kind of like sometimes in la la land, but things that I didn't even realize, like, this was her dream car. She's like, no, you know what? Because it got stolen, we're able to get, the insurance money out. And then, she gave me blah, 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 blah. I don't really understand how it worked, but now I have my dream car. And I was like, questioning her a little bit, like, so wait, didn't that insurance fees go high? She goes, no, no, it's fine. I'm happy I have my dream car. And I was thinking, to her, it was not a big deal. But to me, that was like a moment of, holy crap. Yes, maybe I didn't get the Lexus back, but this was her bridge of incidences to actually get her favorite car ever. And I think that's something to keep in mind here, that sometimes we think our revision has failed or our imaginal act has failed, but we shouldn't allow ourselves to think that way, because it's in the last 7 years of me manifesting all different things. The story isn't necessarily over yet. And the minute you decide the story is over, which I was going to with complaining to my mom, that's when the story is over. But if you hold the faith that this is for your good. This is for your benefit, that your imaginal acts are not gone to nothing. They're actually doing something. Things can turn around better than you could ever imagine. And it wasn't really, this is why I don't like to get extremely specific anymore with my desires and my imagination, because sometimes imagination knows way better than you, way better than your 3D mind, what is
Mhm.
actually going to make you happy, what is actually going to fulfill you,
Yeah.
And so I think there was this desire that I had to get that Lexus back just so that I could have that check mark.
Yeah.
Hey, this happened. 1 + 1 = 2. It feels so certain, feels so understandable. But actually, things like this happen all the time where it turned out better than I could have ever imagined. And so, and I also think it's because it's one, I wasn't that attached to it. I wasn't that emotionally wrapped up in it. And also, what was interesting is as soon as I started manifesting my parents getting the Lexus back, I noticed after that first day when it got stolen, nobody talked about it in my house. Like, this is when I was over at my parents' house for like a few days. They didn't talk about the fact that the Lex was stolen, which is really odd. I mean, something just violating had happened. But I think my imaginal acts were shifting the energy of the house so that none of us were focused on the loss of it. We just moved on with our lives, and things turned out. So something that was really upsetting, violating, and could have turned out really awful turned to something great. So yeah, I'm glad I got to share that story.
Yeah.
Because
That's
it's
great. Yeah, so that's an example of doing it on behalf of another, right? So it's like you manifesting your own thing, and then I know you have a bunch of stories because, like you said, your family and friends now like turn to you and they're like, "Hey, I'm missing this thing," and you're like, "Okay, we'll walk you through it," or like imagine it, you'll imagine on their behalf that they've got it back or whatever. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, so I like what you said there about how, um, like a higher desire was fulfilled out of this. Even though it wasn't exactly what you were imagining, because you're imagining, oh, one white Lexus left, one white Lexus comes back, right? But
mm,
it's like really in the end, what you really wanted was for your mom to feel happy about,
mhm.
the whole situation, and that's like the higher desire that was manifested out of that. So I think that's a cool. I think that's an interesting example. I'm gonna look at the chat here. I think I saw a couple messages come in.
Yeah.
So R&B Kindred Spirit says, "Welcome, family. We talk with like-minded people, support each other, which gives out stronger flow of energy." Yes, I absolutely agree. Like-minded people do support each other and increases a stronger flow of energy. Yes, that's all about what Neville and Chill and the community that we're building here is all about. So that's great. Crystal Clear says, "I had success on Saturday. FedEx notified me that they attempted delivery, but I wasn't home. I was here with hubby working in the shop. I got upset, played the current 3D script, called FedEx and was told there was nothing they could do. I hung up the phone and said, 'I'm getting my package today,' and then went back to my housework. An hour later, they delivered my package. Yes. Uh, and Carrie says, "Yes, totally. If you continue to believe this is working out for you, it always turns out better than what you expected." That was in allusion,
Yeah.
a reference to your comment, Shweta, about how like the story doesn't end until you say it ends.
Mm.
To respond to what Crystal Clear was saying, um, uh, yeah, so okay, so initially engaging with the 3D and then being like, no, you know what? I'm setting my focus and my intent on no, the package is here. And then like you said, just going back to doing your normal thing, trusting that it would arrive, and then boom, there it is. There it arrives. Okay, so I want to share a story.
Please.
I have so many of these. So when Shweta suggested this as a topic. So this is actually a series. Everyday Manifesting is a series that we're doing over the next several Neville and Chills. And this is just the first topic. Okay. So when Shweta, when you suggested this as the first topic, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to like sit and think of stories. Unfortunately, I haven't written down lost item manifestations in the same way
Mm-hmm.
I've written down other things. But
Mm-hmm.
with your encouragement, I will make a mental note that like, yeah, this
Mm-hmm.
should be recorded because like the record of success is confidence building. So I recognize that. I hadn't used it for that. So I've gotten pretty good at using my imagination to just not lose things. So I've kind of set myself in a state where and my partner's on on this chat right now, so like she would know. Generally, I don't lose things, or if I do, they're manifested back so quickly. Like sometimes I don't even
Yeah.
say it. that
Yeah.
they're missing, right? So it's like I'm not one to like really just misplace random things. But if
Yeah.
I do like go to like, and I think that's like a state thing, because it's like, oh, I can either, manifest being really good at getting things back and like losing things all the time and then getting them back.
That's
So I have
true,
like a high
actually.
success rate, or
That's
maybe I
true.
can upgrade my state to like, okay, so I'd say I'm kind of in the state where, thankfully, and I'm grateful for this. This is not something that I have to do a lot, but at the same time, I do have stories,
Mm.
because when they do happen, it's muscle. What do they call it? Muscle memory for me now. It's muscle memory where I know instantly what to do. Right? It's like, I'm traveling on vacation, and like I go to grab my room key for my hotel, and it's like not in my pocket where I put it, and it's like just instantly, like it's like I said, it's muscle memory now. I'm like, oh, let me just hold it in my
Yeah.
hand, and we all know what plastic room keys feels like, right? So just hold it in my hand, go about my thing. Oh, there it is. It fell down the seat or whatever. I just happen to see it. So it's like it's first, but I do have one story in particular that is a little bit more nuanced. And I think that there's value in exploring the nuance. It's similar to the Lexus story, sort of, in a different way. Okay, so I'm in Barcelona with my partner, and we have our bags. We're on our way to the airport, and we're waiting to catch a bus. So we're in Barcelona. We're in a crowded marketplace, and there's like a loud boom that happens in the marketplace, and I'm distracted. I'm like standing with the bags. They're like right here, like right here. And there's this loud boom, and I'm distracted for a minute, and I like look to see what happened. And when I look back, my backpack is gone. Like
Mm.
someone in that moment of distraction walked past and just snatched the backpack right off the top
Mm.
of the suitcase, and it was just gone. Okay.
Yeah.
So in that moment, I was like shocked, and also like really just not okay. So it's like, foreign country, like did not
Exactly.
speak Spanish at that time. I'm much better at Spanish now, been practicing.
Yeah.
But I was like very outside of my normal whatever. Okay. So um instantly I was like, okay, what did I just lose? And I like kind of ran through the list, and thankfully it was all stuff that I could replace.
Mm.
There's a lot of value in the bag. It was probably about $1,500, $1,600 worth of stuff, but it was just stuff. I had my passport. I had like the precious things that like I really didn't want to lose. I had just bought a $3,000 meditation machine, and that was in my other bag. So like that got
Mm.
lucky. Like it was like I was like, okay, I did it, and it didn't feel
Mm.
great, and I wasn't happy about it, but I was also like not panicking, because I was like, okay, I have everything I need to get on the flight and go home, and like nothing truly precious was lost. Okay, so I immediately went into like some heart work and some forgiveness work, because I knew that like if I just got robbed, I robbed myself, because I understand the
Mm.
imagination is myself pushed out, right? So I was like, okay, what just happened? Do I went and did some work on my heart of like, okay, not nobody can steal from me, and not can't steal from myself, like all that type of stuff, right? So that's the place that I went with it. Okay, so this is where the nuance is, because that bag never came back. I flew back, thousands of miles back home, and that bag never came back. However, there's another part of this story. So I get home, and it's like maybe a week and a half later, and I need my from a long, long time ago, my military ID card. I need my military ID card for something.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And I suddenly become aware that it was in the bag,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes traveling or whatever, like you get special deals if you're a veteran. So I just
Mm.
keep the card in my bag, because that's when I'm most likely to need it to like,
Mm-hmm.
get whatever, half price tickets, whatever, it's like a thing, right? So I'm like, I need the card, and I'm like, oh my God, that bag is where I kept that card. And so then that's when I got hit with this, like, oh my God, I thought that literally everything there was replaceable. That's the one thing that is irreplaceable. And that's the type of thing I wanted to show my kids, and
Yeah.
grandkids maybe someday, is like, this is my military ID from when I
Yeah.
was, in the military when I was 18, right?
Yeah.
Like I had an
Yeah.
emotional connection to this thing. And so I felt this like intense sadness like sit on my heart. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I lost this. And I got super sad. And then I was like, wait a second. I don't have to surrender to this. I don't care. Like, I don't care about it being, 8,000 miles away. Like, I don't care about any of the 3D. If this is important to me, all I have to do is hold it in my hand. And I
Mm.
know that I know what I know, what I know. Like I am that I am that I am. I know that this will, I will find it. Somehow I will find it. And so I just sat in the silence and like I said, it's a treasured item. So I knew exactly what it looked like and felt like or whatever. And I just held it in my hand and just like felt it. And then I looked at it lovingly and just like gazed at it. And I was like, and then also this relief, the emotional feeling of relief is important to this process of like, oh
Mm,
my God, I was scared there for a minute, but I'm so relieved to know that I've got this thing. Like, I don't care about the rest of the stuff in the bag. This is the thing that I really cared about. Like, I'm so grateful. I feel so relieved that this is back. And so
mm,
I did that and I held it, and it was not immediate. It was there was several days, maybe even a week, and I did repeat the act several times because, like I said, it was like one thing that initially I was upset emotionally about losing. And so I was like invested in like connecting to the state of having it. And then I did look at one point in the only other place that I could think of that
mhm.
maybe it would be, and it was not there. And I was like, okay, it was probably in that bag, but I'm not gonna let that like interrupt my belief that it will come back. Okay, so like continuing to hold it, continue to stay connected. I ended up finding it in I think it was a desk drawer like several days later, after like having really connected, and I had no memory. It wasn't
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, no, I guess I did put it there. I had no memory of it being in the
yeah.
desk drawer. Like, and like I said, I had kept it in the bag. So it's like there's nuance to this, right? It's like the bag didn't come back. Was it in the bag? Was it not in the bag? I don't really know. All I
Mm-hmm.
know is that I
Mm-hmm.
have this precious object that I manifested. I can't
Mm-hmm.
really point to a 3D bridge of incidents of like how
Yeah.
it got there or whatever. And I didn't, and to be perfectly honest, I did not waste a lot of brain power trying to figure out what happened. I was
Yes.
so relieved. I was like,
I
okay,
think that
it
that's
works.
key.
It's
So much of what you said is key. And I want to first start with what you said originally, which is I'm not the type of person that loses things. I think that is where this all starts because I guess I am the kind of person that loses stuff a lot because I have so many stories of getting these things back, but I might be addicted to that experience. That's a key takeaway for me that I don't want to finish the sentence of I'm the type of person who loses things. I want to finish that sentence with that. I'd rather be borrow from that state so that when let's say someone does like rip some bag off of me, knock on wood, or whatever. So let's say something like that happens. It's stuff that I don't mind anyway. Because if I already have that solidified belief in myself that I don't lose important things, that's a really great base to start off on. So I really appreciate you saying that because it's definitely a lesson that I've sometimes avoided because I maybe there's a part of me that likes that generation again of finding that lost thing. So something to think about there. The second thing I want to say is that when you thought okay it's in that bag and you felt this sense of sensation you persisted of getting it back no matter what and you let go of reason and logic. I think reason and logic can really entrap us, and one thing I really like to do is say and it helps if you're like the night before you have no recollection of what happened because then you can say well I'm going to open to all kinds of possibilities, but when you do think
yes,
you know where something is,
yes,
I want you to loosen that knowing. You don't
loose.
really know. Things can slip your mind. And we want to be open to things that reason and logic sometimes shuts things down. Neville talked about reason and logic playing the role of the devil a lot of the time. And this is what he's talking about is when you look at it like from some interpretations of quantum physics, they say that, things exist in multiple states at once. And it's only your observation that brings it to a discrete, hardened possibility, uh, possibility. So it comes from different waves of probability. Was it in the bag? Was it not? Was it, and you right now in Josiah, you don't know. You don't know if it's in the bag or in the desk or where it was, but you're willing to step away from that and letting it be in the world of probabilities rather than no, I know it was in that bag. Damn, I know it was in that bag. So I think that moving away as much as you can from reason and logic is a big part of it. And then once you got it back, let's not look a gift horse in the mouth. I do that. I think
Exactly.
that's a big part of it too. Let's
Yeah.
not like fuss too much. Oh, where was it? Or how did that happen? Try to retrace the steps. That's again closing all the probabilities and possibilities again. I think the more we can let the mystery of life like be okay with the mystery of life, like the more magic and magic happens. And I think that's a really beautiful story. And then when you got the card back, I'm sure it's a nice, safe place now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it is. Yeah. No, I think that's a very important distinction. I think this is a term I've heard you use before about loosening your assumptions about anything, about any topic that like you're kind of locked into with maybe logic and reason, like loosening, like let's kind of like, create a little bit of space for the
Yes.
magic. It's like opening up the receptivity to like maybe things aren't the way that I collapsed that wave into particles, like because if I okay, so if I were not the man that I am, and I discovered that this card was gone and knew that it was in the bag and just surrendered
Yeah.
and accepted defeat, then maybe from a quantum physics perspective,
Hmm.
I would have manifested that card being in that bag and 8,000 miles away, and I never would have seen it again. But because I was able to say, you know what? I'm not allowing the logic of, oh, that bag is
Hmm.
8,000 miles away to determine whether or not I can have the thing that I really care about out of that bag. I'm not going to let, like, because distance is imaginary too. Like everything is imaginary. Nothing can stop me.
Yes.
Castle button,
Yes.
right? It's like, so I was like, I don't care if it even was like I can manifest a different reality. So it was loosening the assumptions to
Yes.
be open and
Letting
available
it
for the
go,
miracle.
sometimes
Yes.
I don't know if you've noticed in artists where a lot of us might think they're crazy. They don't have logic and reason holding them back, but it's that lack of, logic and reason. Oh, you'll never make it. Millions of people try to be what you're doing, but they never do.
Oh
It's
yeah.
they say, I don't care about that. I'm so certain in my belief in myself that I'm going to push forward anyway. There's countless examples of that. And I think
Yeah.
artists are a big part of it because art is in the realm outside of logic and reason. I think that
Yes.
artists play with those loosened probabilities all the time of like, I'm just going to put this forward, even though, many people tell me that it's not possible. The rags to riches stories that we all get inspired by. But I think that's really important that we loosen our grip on logic and reason and put it in its rightful place. Logic and reason is good for, I don't know, going shopping for groceries, meal planning,
Yeah.
the basics of everyday life, decision making. You can enjoy logic
All
and
the stuff
reason.
that AI can do, all the stuff AI can do is good.
Yeah.
Logic and
Give
reason,
it,
but
give it
we're
that. Like,
humans.
give AI the responsibility of logic and reason. I think that's a really interesting
Yes.
point. And allow your human imagination to live in multiple possibilities at the same time and be okay. In fact, I think a very healthy thing for you to kind of take from this and for us to take from your manifestation stories, it doesn't matter how it came by. Maybe it could have appeared back there on its own, or maybe you never had it in the bag in the first place, and that's okay. And in fact, you enjoy the ambiguity of that. I think we need to
Yes.
get really comfortable with ambiguity if you're going to be in manifesting. And I'm comfortable with it as well. I'm really comfortable with not knowing how something happened. And I
Yeah.
wanted to also bring this up because I've lost so many things and found them back. I've also spent a lot of time reading stories. I'm talking thousands of stories of people, finding lost items, right? Because I've lost things before, when I'm Googling or searching, I've come across these stories. One thing I see constantly in terms of a theme is people find things where they looked already. So they looked already at this thing like a million times. I looked, and then they find it there. And then I swear I was looking. And you could say, oh, they were in a frantic state, so their eyes skipped it. Fair. You could say, some logic reason to why their brain couldn't catch that. But I genuinely think if you're using manifestation techniques, it's the loosening of the assumption. Okay, I'm going to stop frantically looking right now. My actions clearly aren't helping me. I'm going to let the universe, or however you want to kind of frame it to yourself in a way that works for you, find it back. And one thing I really like, and I think this is something that might sound random, I'm not sure, but someone had told me that the pineal gland acts like a magnet, and that kind of resonated with me. It might not be the way I think of I don't sit around thinking about my third eye all day long, even in the context of manifesting, but that kind of stayed with me. So almost every single time I lose something, I kind of imagine that my brain, when it's visualizing, and my heart, because these are electromagnetic fields, are like magnetizing that item and smacking me in the forehead. I know that sounds a little weird, but I like, if like, other than not my mom's car, because that would be a weird visual, but lots of other things. I just imagine it like being magnetized here, and in
Yeah.
no time it comes back, including my brother's ring that he lost. My brother doesn't necessarily use Neville Goddard's teachings, at least not that I know of, like on a daily basis. But when he lost his ring recently, he was like, Shweta, please help me. Like I can't find my ring. And I was like, don't worry, Lakshman, chill out. You're gonna find it. You're gonna be just fine. You're gonna find it. Like get a coffee, go for a walk. Like you've already looked, you ripped apart the house, it's fine. And all I did was hear him say that he found it. I got it back. I got it back. I got it back. And sure enough, he got it back. And he was telling me he was listening to Neville lectures and trying to calm down and trying to visualize. Because what was happening with him before he got the ring is maybe this happened. Maybe that happened. Maybe this happened. Maybe the dog swallowed it. I mean, he was doing the thing of going down all the logical, reasonable routes. And I was telling him to cut that out and just know that you found it. So I really think when you lose something, if you can avoid, maybe it's here. Maybe that happened. Maybe this happened. That sort of processes can block
Mhm.
the the infinite ways it can come to you.
Mhm.
Instead, imagine the delicious feelings of having it back and then letting it go. Because usually when you lose something, I mean, and especially I can imagine when someone loses an animal or something that they really love, that can be very, very, very difficult. So actually, this is another reason I wanted to bring this up is because of my practice in this area. When my dog ran away recently, I knew I could get this has happened twice. I knew I could get my dog back, you know. I Everyone was like, where's Coco? And we are freaking out. And I was like, no, she's coming back. She's coming back. I get out of the house. I turn right. I knew exactly where to go. And she's chilling with our neighbor in like under some trees or something. And she didn't want to come back home. She loves my neighbor too much. And I'm like, I think the reason we need to build these stories up is for things like times like that, where you really do need a repertoire of having done this enough times and feeling really solid in your conviction and this happened with both my dogs where we didn't know where the dogs were and we were able to find them. So I genuinely I also want to see where the chat is, but I genuinely credit finding all these lost items with my being able to be calm in bigger things.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think what we'll do, I'm gonna read the chat here, see what the comments are. So we have Marcio joined us. Hello. Motivation for God's Son joined us. What a great name. And then what we'll do is we'll take all of this and we'll condense it into a series of steps just to like recap it and really help it land.
Yeah.
And then I think we'll be good. Okay, so what do we have? We have good job, guys. Faith is the key for manifesting anything.
Mm.
Yes, absolutely. I also believe in writing it down and going over it 3 times every day until it is achieved, and you can feel it coming too. Yes, yeah. I'm a big fan of writing things down, also because we're materially altering reality when we write things down. Because now a piece of paper, which is vibrating atoms, is now materially altered, and so there's kind of this magical, and they call it spelling for a reason, right? Like there's this
Mhm.
magical thing that's happening. It's like it's not magical, it's imagination, but you get what I'm saying, right? You're materially altering reality by saying that this is now true, and then the focusing on it and feeling on it, charging it with feeling. It's really cool. Marcia's here. Hello, Marcio. Oh my God, I had no idea there was Neville and Chill today. So our plan is to do it. There'll be one every week for a while, and we're doing this series of everyday manifesting to talk about topics like this. And there's as we're talking, Shweta, there are so many things I'm like, oh, and then like you take what you've learned from this and you can apply to this. In the back of my mind, I'm like, no, that's next episode. Like,
Yes, exactly.
so they all build on
Exactly.
each other here, right? But like all that's coming, so we'll have some awesome discussions about it. Um, Crystal Cray says, that's why I feel the forbidden fruit was knowledge. We start
Mm.
accepting as fact what people outside of us tell us. We have to go back to the innocence of children and believing in all possibilities. Uh, that's a
Mm.
very beautiful insight. Absolutely. Uh, I
Wow.
so this is some. I feel like I've talked about this in a recent Neville and Chill. I think it was a solo one. I was talking about this paradigm of other people telling us what's true, and then when we're little and don't know any better, we just kind of start to blindly accept other people's authority, which is really them writing our story for us. and how really all that writing for most of us was like kind of clamping down on possibilities and like limiting, what's possible. And so when we get to this point where we're ready to break through all of that, we have to discard all of that and then rise to a level of confidence, assertiveness, and authorship, where we can boldly write reality the way that we desire it to be and not really care at all what other people have to say about it. Right. So that's like the
Love
next.
it. I
Yeah.
love it. And I do love the forbidden fruit of knowledge, kind of reframing that as the forbidden fruit of knowledge of reason, logic, all the things
Mm.
we think of as, so smart today. It kind of makes sense why in a place of paradise, why eating that forbidden fruit of knowledge of right and wrong and all these things that make up our 3D reality could descend us from some place like that into. So that's a very fruitful, no pun intended,
Yes.
analogy. So
Yeah,
thanks for
that's
that.
great. Yeah. Yeah. So there was one other image that I got as you were speaking, Shweta, a minute ago. And it was kind of applies this idea of the spiral, which you and I have talked about in a recent Neville and Chill, and
Mm-hmm.
how they're like spirals. So it's microcosms and macrocosms of spirals. Everything's a spiral. It's like like we're living in a fractal universe of spirals in a metaphysical way. So like losing an item, right? So you can like spiral down into that, which is like getting crushed by logic and reason and what everybody else is saying. Oh, that's never coming back. It's lost for forever. Like you're like spiraling down, to where you're eventually going to accept defeat. Or there's like realizing that something is not where you thought it was going to be, and then immediately
Mm-hmm.
choosing to ascend in the awareness of holding it in your hand to where the problem is
Mm-hmm.
solved. Right. So I wanted to like make that reference that
Mm-hmm.
everything can be viewed that way. And then also in that descent of the spiral, we were talking about like getting crushed by logic and reason. The descent of the spiral of like, logic and reason says I won't get it. I won't get it. Other people tell me I won't get it. Like I'm really sitting in this energy of not having it. Like all of that is a leak of creative energy. And it's just like we're just giving away all of that creative energy. And then, like just wasting it, divesting, losing power. Right. I think that's how you started this whole thing by discussing. It's like we can feel powerless when this happens. Well, it's because we're giving away our power to logic
Mm-hmm.
and reason and what other people are saying about our chances of getting it back. So
Yeah.
to ascend the spiral is to retain all of that and to create space through loosened assumptions. And as we do that, then it's like that power is now repurposed to create, that experience of that item returning to us.
Absolutely. I think the spiral, it's funny you say that because today I got introduced to a concept I had never heard of called it's gonna come to me. There's two terms, a spiral and there's a second term. And it's the spiral principle of consciousness, but it's not a Neville concept, it's someone else's. And I
Hmm.
started reading into it and I'm gonna put it in the chat in a second. I have it written
Yeah.
down somewhere. It elucidates the spiral principle from yet another exciting angle. And it
Cool.
talks about you looking at like it talks about you looking at the people around you and nations around you, societies around you, and being able to see where they are on the spiral. So and seeing what level of consciousness they are and how to engage with them where they're in that consciousness. So it's interesting that you bring
Mm.
that up because I think that the metaphor of spiral has so many legs, like more than more
Oh
than I
yeah.
have been ever thought of, and I already knew how important that is. And I think I think that's a really important thing. I think what you said earlier about I'm not the kind of guy who loses things. To me, that feels like an ascension on a bigger spiral than what I'm used to, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Where it feels like a newer version of me, and that really was
Mm.
compelling to me. And it seems kind of obvious. Maybe I can be the kind of person that rarely loses things. So it's okay, it's okay if it happens once in every couple of years, but that's a good invitation, and that felt like an ascension a bit,
Mm.
of the story that I'm telling myself right now. Because it's so
Very cool.
cyclical. Oh, I lose something, I find it to the point where mom was like, "Oh, you'll find it. You always lose stuff and find it." Like
Yeah.
it's too cyclical. It's getting boring
Yeah.
now. So,
Yeah.
time for a new
Built
story and
in.
an
Yeah.
upgrade with it.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Um, Stasio is asking, are you talking about AQAL meta theory? Is
Oh
that the term?
no, I don't know what that is, but it's called spiral dynamics of consciousness.
Spiral dynamics.
And it is by it's a little new to me. And it seems like there's a lot of people that speak about it, but if you Google spiral dynamics, and it talks about how different, and I was really interested in it in the macro, all the different societies that we have on this world and how they all feel like they're in different levels of consciousness. Don't get me wrong, sometimes it ebbs and flows, but I was like interested in this topic. And then I don't know if we've talked about this before, Josiah, when I'm interested in something, or when you're interested in something, when you go to the end of being like, oh, I understand that better, different things come your way. This just randomly came my way. And it explains really interestingly, it complements Neville's teaching of the spiral in a really interesting way. So just a tidbit, if you liked what we had to say about the spiral, which a lot of people seem to look into that. It's called Spiral Dynamics of Consciousness.
When you complete your deep dive into that and feel like you have a good handle on it, it'd be awesome for you to build a Neville, like integration of the Neville approach and this theory together, and bring it to the mastermind. I
would love to do that, because it reminds me of a lot of the teachings that you've shared in your previous programs about human evolution, how we went from survival to we've gone from a place of survival to self-actualization, and how and that spiral, the way that it's described, really reminded me so deeply of how Neville talks about when you ascend the spiral, you reach the promise, this understanding of oneness, this understanding, being able to see things really holistically from another view. So really cool concept, and absolutely, I'd love to do that. And it's ripe with a lot of fruit here, because sometimes and this is not, we're talking about practical stuff here today, but as people who are interested in imagination, we know how all consuming it is. If everything is imagination, that's society, that's politics, that's, anything you see around the world. And it's great to engage with politics if you feel compelled to, but if you can find a zoomed out a way of doing that, whether that's through metaphysical concepts, that could be really helpful in navigating difficult times,
Yes.
So anyway, something to think about there.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay. So let's recap the process of how to engage with an experience of losing an item. And let's do it in steps. So step one, you recognize that something's missing. It's not where you found it, right? So what's step two?
So yeah, that happens. So that's the problem state. And I would say actually the step one, because I guess step one would be acknowledging that you lost it. That's fine. An acknowledgement of okay, this is where I'm at. I lost it. Number two would be calm yourself. Okay, calm as much as you can. Calming down, because I think the franticness is sort of like a knee-jerk reaction we might feel. But the best thing you can do, if you're frantically looking for something, that you're creating more messes, you're in a state of lack. If you can immediately go to a place where you calm yourself, and what I like to do is put on meditative music. I have my okay Google right there. I don't want to freak her out yet, so I usually will tell it just like immediately, play some meditative music, and then as it calms me down, I take some deep breaths in and out, 6 seconds in and out, and I talk
meditative music on YouTube music.
Sorry, it did it. But anyway,
so funny.
Sorry, 1 second.
Yeah. Go ahead. Okay, so step one, this is so funny. So step one is recognize that something's not where it should be. Step two is to calm yourself, meaning that there's the invitation of like, oh, let me freak out right now. Okay, so that's an invitation. You don't have to accept it. So that's like the knee jerk. That's the lower physicality, being like, oh my God, I'm so
caught up in the story. It's taking up all your attention. Everything, you're zoomed in on this, and everything else in life feels unimportant for that moment. And you're really zoomed into the person that's lost that item. Now, when you calm yourself down, you're trying to zoom out of that problem for a second and see yourself out of that problem. And that can feel difficult. That can feel challenging, but that really is a challenge. Calm yourself down, at least get the body on board by deep breathing. And then I like to talk to myself a little bit. No, it's going to be fine. I'll be just fine. It'll be okay. Like whatever you can to calm yourself down. So that's one thing. That's what you do. And I think it's important to do that before you start your imaginal work. So you're not bringing that frantic energy into the imaginal work.
Yes. So manage the emotional state is the first priority before you even think about the thing. Let me make sure I manage my emotional state. That's crucial. Yes.
Yes, and what I notice is when people are in really dire situations where they've lost something like a child or something, they're actually not frantic because somehow something kicks in, they calm down. Like mom who's lost their kid, they might have a moment of frantic, but then they calm down. Something happens and they're in flow state. And when they're successful, that's what makes them usually successful at finding it, is that something kicks in us when we know it's do or die. Anyway, so calm down as much as you can. And then I think, shift into imaginal work. And I would start by visualizing the item, because we're talking about lost things, visualizing the item in as multi-sensory form as you can. So there's many different ways you can do this, right? But because this is an object and you probably have held it before, imagine the last time you held it. Imagine every single thing that's in it, see it, feel it, feel the texture of it. I would get really familiar with how that object feels, because sometimes, there's all these different techniques we can do, but get really familiar to the point where you almost feel like you could touch it in imagination. So get really familiar with it. And yeah, so that would be the next step.
Okay. Yep.
So use all your senses to feel the item.
Yep.
And where you're physically holding it. And then if as much as you can, there's relief and gratitude. So those are the two I kind of go for. The relief, like you talked about in one of your stories, it's paramount, because how else would you feel when you got it? Oh, phew, I got it back. And then, and that's little glimmers. We're not saying you go from feeling frantic to feeling amazingly grateful in no time. That's okay. But it's little glimmers that you kind of like dissolve the old stuff and try to get a little glimmer of as much as you can. And the more and more and more and more you visualize it, because of the way that the subconscious mind works and because of the way the brain works, it can't necessarily tell that this is happening or not. So the more you do it, the more easy it'll be for you to feel that gratitude and relief. And you do that enough, and then you can now try secondary imaginal things. So one thing I really like to do once I visualize the item back is hear myself or someone else telling me, found it. So like once I've done everything I can to get that item truly within me as real as possible, I kind of surround myself with the story of having found it. Oh, mom, I found it. I hear myself saying that, or I hear my mom saying, oh, Shveta, look, it's right here. Those can happen. You kind of supplement it with those other things outside of it. And then you calm yourself down. I'll find it. No, I'll find it. I always do this. I talk to myself. I'll find it. I'll be just fine. And calm yourself down, and then I guess one of the steps here, I don't know what step we're at, but is to stop thinking of because you've already probably done the action step of trying to find it. If you have to do that, do that. But at some point, you're not going to, I want you to stop thinking, maybe it's here, maybe it's there, debating the possibilities of where it could be.
Yes.
At some point, that needs to stop, because in imagination, you've already found it. So if you've already found it, you wouldn't be thinking, maybe it's here, maybe it's there. You got to let that go at some point.
Yes. Okay, so step one, let's recap this. So step one is acknowledging the item is not where you thought it was, right? So it's like, oh, okay, something's missing. Step two is emotional regulation. So let me control my state and get into a good place. Step three is to do the initial imagination work, and that really starts with a visualization and then an emotional feeling of relief. Step four is to add some sort of story element to it, like hearing yourself call out to your partner, hey, I found it, or tell a friend, hey, whatever, or even just saying yes, adding another sensory element to it. And then the final step would be to persist and to repeat as necessary. Well, stop looking, right? That was also a key. Stop looking, because if you have it, you wouldn't keep looking for it. You can't speak of how you're going to Barbados, Neville, if you're already in Barbados. You can't speak of how am I going to get there. Same thing. If you have the item, you can't be looking for it, right? So now if you get a ding wait, my imagination is showing me that it's here. Yeah, go there. But if it's not there, don't continue to tear stuff apart, because that's in the state of looking, and we want to be in the state.
Totally true. And I think because I think what happens is we can give ourselves, let's say, 40 minutes to look for something. Fine. Give yourself 30 minutes to look what you need to, but at some point it needs to stop, because when you stop looking for it, all of a sudden you're allowing your brain to kind of, because sometimes you didn't lose it. You just don't know where it is. Right. But then the brain will give you a hint. No, remember last time. But if you're looking for it, the brain doesn't have the energy to give you that hint of where it could be. So I really recommend, if you need to get it out of your system by turning your room upside down, do it for half an hour, and then you got to let it go and give yourself room for so that you don't, strangle the possibilities. You're strangling the possibilities when you do that. So loosen it up by letting
loosen
it
the
go for a
assumptions.
while.
Yep.
And then I think revision is very important. I
Yep.
constantly, when something is big, especially, or important to me, like my wallet or other things, I constantly revised hearing people say that I couldn't get it, and I do that through audio, because that's my audio is my most realistic, and touch, I think, is my most realistic sense. So
Yep.
I would easily go into, if someone said, no, you're never getting this, I'm like, I kept hearing them say, no, I found it. Oh my God, I found it. I found it. No, I found it, like over and over and over and over. So that would be the other thing. And then in general, I think if you have a sense of gratitude that you carry around you, in general, your manifestations have a sweetness to them. Your life is sweeter. So if you can find that day, you might have lost something, but other things to be grateful for, that really dissolves.
Yes.
So, so I guess this step is zoom out of the story. There's other things in your life. Yeah, you might have lost something, but you got so many other things that you do
Shift
have.
focus.
So, like,
Yes.
enjoy the havingness of all the other things that you have as much as you can. And again, I'm saying this as someone that really has a difficult time managing my emotions, that is very reactive. That's part of the reason I found Neville, is that I just couldn't get my emotions in check. So I know it's challenging, but I've done it enough times to know that every little drop of the bucket that you do, every little effort you make to move to gratitude, to move to relief, actually plays in your favor. And the world has a lot of grace, actually, that it can give you there. And then at some point, I want us to detach from the outcome. That's what I had to do with my wallet story. I was like, no, I have to go to India. Like, I can't be like, looking for this for another week and, not enjoy my trip. I'm going to go to India. I'm sure my wallet will come back. I'm okay. And then, like, because I had let it go, I noticed that I didn't need my wallet. That was the other thing, is when you're revising and things like that, there are all these other things that happen that soften the blow. Like, Neville talked about using the law to soften the blows of life. He didn't say, oh, your life is going to be absolutely perfect. He said, in this 3D world, in this world of horrors, you're going to have these ups and downs, and this will soften the blow. That's what I noticed with these teachings, that when I was visualizing getting my wallet back, the blow was softened. I didn't need to pull out my money the whole time on my trip. Nobody asked for ID, like when I was in the airport. You know what I mean? So the results might not be the end result, but if you're judging it that way, you're missing out, because there's all these other things that can ripple effect, is what I'm trying to say. So, and then
Yes.
repetition's really key here, because I would say giving up here would be saying, I guess it is gone, allowing the disappointment to end the story. But surrendering and allowing, like, you surrender the story, you allow, and you say, nope, I'm going to repeat it anytime I can when I'm in a good place. Because that's what happened with my wallet. I was feeling really good that day and everything was going well. And I was like, let me just visualize it one last time. And I felt everything. And that's when I got the wallet back. So detach, but like repeat whenever you feel good. And then be open to a better outcome. That's the other thing with, like I said, with my mom's car. While I was kind of bummed that didn't happen with the white Lexus, it was a bridge of incidents to get one of her, her dream car, her top dream car. So be open to better outcomes. And the other thing my mom always told me is, Shweta, if someone steals, especially when someone steals something, right? That can be so violating, so painful. What she likes to tell me to do is, oh, that person, I guess they needed it more than me. You kind of say, you know what? That person, they might have needed it more than me. And this is after, like, let's say that you've done all these steps, okay? And you're in a place where you don't feel like it's shifted. It hasn't come here. But to loosen that grip and to continue ascending, so you don't go down the spiral, because what can you do? Oh, people always steal. This neighborhood is turning into crap. This is an untrustworthy world. Well, you don't want to live in a world like that. So you would say, no, that person probably needed it. I bless them for having it. And I get, because of that blessing, we believe in, in Hinduism, that you get more, you get more once you're not cursing that person, so vibrationally, you get to a different place. Now, that's something I have done in the past. And I noticed that my life gets better. The more forgiveness I have in my heart. And this, I think, is important when people stole something from you. And that's what you talked about too, right? When your bag was taken, you were led to practice forgiveness of yourself. Did you feel like you also had to practice forgiveness of that person?
Yes. Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you pointed out a good thing there about, like, oh, maybe they needed it more than I did. Like, I think in that case, particularly since all of the items were replaceable to me, I was like, okay, I'm willing to let it go. But I did feel violated. So I did do the work on
Yeah.
healing myself and like forgiving them, forgiving myself, because again, the world being a mirror, I was like, I can't lose anything and I can't rob myself, right? So I chose. So from then on, instead of telling the story, like you'll notice, I didn't say that I was like robbed. I said the bag was gone, right? So
Mm,
I started calling it an unexpected reallocation of resources
yeah.
because I didn't
Yeah.
want to tell the story of like, oh, someone stole from me, right?
No,
Because like that felt so
exactly. That has
victimhood,
so
right? So I was
much
like,
charge. And
yeah. So
when you,
I chose
yeah,
not to. I was like, oh, it was
yeah.
an unexpected reallocation of resources.
And
Like,
by the way, that
you
can
know,
work in your favor. I mean, I feel that if you forgive other people in that scenario, especially in a scenario where you do feel violated, there's so much forgiveness that comes your way. It's weird. Like I noticed, like not because we're going out here stealing things, but there's this grace that once you extend it to that other person in a time where you don't want to, and you don't, you're demonstrating oneness though. You're demonstrating
yes.
forget when you demonstrate that state, it comes back to you a thousandfold. So when all else fails, I think because with all the steps I just told you, I'm guaranteeing like 90% of the time, I really do believe this, you're gonna get your item back. And then there's one more technique I'll leave you with, but I'm guaranteeing like 90% of the time you'll get your item back. But the 10% that you don't, you probably didn't need it that way. You probably it could serve as a propeller upwards so that you never lose another thing again, or you never get stolen from again. Like it can be repurposed for you to go upwards if you practice forgiveness, gratitude, look at what you do have. In those times where it feels like it didn't work, and better things can come your way, like it did with my mom's car. Um, but yeah, and I think the kind of last, I guess, technique that I wanted to say in terms of like finding lost items is I talk to the universe as if it's its own entity. And so a lot of people I think do this, but in this case, I do it only for lost items because I typically don't think of the universe as like a benevolent thing that's giving things to me. But in this case, when I lose things, I will be like, universe, I know you know where it is. Because when I think of the world, I know the world knows where it is. I know you know where it is. So just lead me to it when you get the chance. Like, lead me to it when you get the chance. I know you know where it is. Like, there's this like feeling of trust that the universe knows where it is. For some reason, that like unlocks a lot every time I have lost things in the past.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. Moon Buddy said something similar in the chat. Hi, Moon Buddy. Moon Buddy says, I say, show yourself and then let go and know it will show up. It's a similar thing. Crystal Clear is saying, I don't even worry about thieves. I don't even lock my doors when I leave the house. I couldn't even tell you where a house key is.
I'm
So
like that
that's that
too.
master state of like, nope, nobody can rob me. Like I'm just not in a place of consciousness where that could happen. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Beautiful. Okay, so this is just the beginning of this series. Like I said, throughout this whole conversation, my mind's just been going wild with like how this expands into all of these other practical things.
Mm,
So, solving problems in the world of Caesar, relationships, opportunities, like there's so many places we can go with this. So we're going to continue to explore this. We will
yes.
continue this. Next week, we'll have Shweta back. We'll have another episode of Neville and Chill, specifically on the topic of everyday manifesting. I'm going to change the title of this video to say Manifesting Lost Items, 97% success rate, because you heard it here. Like that's what we're going with. So I'm going to change
I
the
wish I
title
had
to
some
get
proof
all the
of
play.
that because I
Yeah.
know that, you know, anyway, I wish I had some proof of that, but I can tell you that because I've recorded a lot of this,
Okay. Okay.
I have some journal of that, but that's a success rate. My mom, who's an accountant, told me, she's like, you have like a 97%, because I said 90, that's how I feel.
Hey, she's an accountant. That's good enough for me and for YouTube.
So I saw Marcio's comment here about, is the spiral dynamics theory post Neville? Because earlier he said knowing how to engage with people on different levels of consciousness would be super helpful. I really recommend reading it. And yes, it's post Neville, which is really interesting. So there's a lot of people on YouTube. I had never seen this before. And this is me having Googled a bunch about spirals, and I never saw this until today. But on YouTube, you'll find a lot of different people talking about the spiral of consciousness, and they mean at a macro level, societal level, and personal too. But I find it very useful. And my recommendation is anytime you see some theories from like a different kind of like, maybe it's in psychology or something like that, or some other kind of modality, if you look at it through the Neville angle, there's so much you can get out of it, because these are just different modalities to explore imagination, and if you're imaginative with it, you get so much out of it. So as Josiah said, eventually I would love to, once I do a little more reading on this, share more about what I learned from that. But do a Google yourself on the spiral dynamics when you get the chance. And if you're a member, by the way, of Josiah's channel, I did a presentation about the spiral that you can find under his membership, that I think would be a great start as to what this concept even is.
Yes. Yeah, a great prologue. Yeah, awesome. Perfect. Okay. Marcia says thank you. Awesome. Okay, so that does it for this one. We will see you all back for Sunday Mystery School Sunday, same time as always. And then we will continue this conversation next week with another Neville and Chill. Thank you so much for joining me, Shweta. This was fun and also insightful. And I know that the audience was inspired to upgrade their state in regards to this topic. So thank you for bringing it, like always.
Well, thank you for inviting me on, and I'll see you everybody next Tuesday.
Yeah, see you next Tuesday.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us live. We'll catch you all in the next. Have a great night, everyone.
Bye.